in less than 60 seconds. Please be advised that for data privacy, this recording is this webinar is going to be recorded, and you will also receive a copy of this um, webinar as well. We have our host Hamad Rana from
Hello, everyone.
Vertex Consulting. And we also have here Mark Jonas Serra from Vertex Group, who is co-hosting the event. Again, my name is Cheska Alcantara, and I'm just introducing everyone. And let's begin the webinar.
Thank you, Jessica. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for financial management for NDIS providers. We know how busy you all are, so we really appreciate you taking the time to be here attending this very insightful webinar. So just a couple of quick notes. As mentioned by Jessica, this session is being recorded. You'll be able to receive a copy after this webinar. You'll be able also to ask questions via the chat, and we'll leave time at the end for Q&A. Today's session is all about giving you practical, real-world financial insights you can actually apply in your organization.
Thanks so
Allow
much,
me
Mark.
to allow me to introduce you, Hamad.
Sure.
Thank you. So we're joined by Hamad Rana from TaxCube, a tax specialist. Hamad works closely with NDIS providers on accounting, tax, payroll, and financial structuring, and has firsthand experience helping businesses navigate audits, specifically in NDIS, pricing arrangements, and compliance challenges. So today, Hamad will walk us through budgeting basics and the NDIS practice, pricing structure and best practices for invoicing, common payroll mistakes to avoid, and also how to build a financially stable NDIS business. Hamad?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. So first of all, just a quick introduction. My name is Hamad Rana. I'm a chartered accountant, and I've been doing accounting for about 17 years. I started my career with a company called Pacific Brands. So they own um, bonds, whole proof, Mosra. And then after that, I went and worked in a mining company for about 8 years, where I had multiple roles like management accountant, commercial accountant, tax accountant, and then lastly as an internal auditor. And before we started our practice, I was in an American company called OI Glass, where I was managing $200 million of capital spent across Asia and across Australia and New Zealand. Okay, and about 8 years ago, we started our practice. We specialize in bringing the strategies that we learned in the large organizations and streamline it to match to our clients who are smaller operators or smaller businesses. And some of the learnings that we had from the large organizations, we try to implement them into small organizations. Now, just to begin, and just I guess from the expectations point of view as well, I just want to let you know that I looked at the agenda, and the agenda's got quite a lot of items. I think it would be better that if we cover details. So rather than trying to cover 10 topics, I will try to cover one topic at a time in a slow-paced environment, so that everybody sort of understands and then can ask questions. And then we can make it a series of webinars where we can just go through each item, because there's a lot to take in, and for myself and as well as for you guys as well. Okay, so let's just start with the presentation. Mark, if you can just go to the first page, and then I think the first item is budgeting and forecasting. Now, just to start with, like, why we're doing these challenges. As you know, a lot of the NDS providers are facing. It's a very challenging environment to be an NDIS provider, especially with the changes that are happening through the NDIS, cutting the funding and the timing of the funding. Now you got quarterly fundings coming in, as well as a lot more substantiation required for additional funding. So I think pretty much every month you hear one big provider closing down or stopping services with relation to the NDIS. And one of the biggest issue with that is the additional cost that the providers have to bear while providing services. And it's become a very, you can say, complicated business to be, because you have small operators who don't have many overheads, and then you have large operators who have got a lot of overheads. At the same time, they do have the capacity to deliver more services, but by the time they cover all the overheads, it's no longer sustainable business. So size and the level of services you provide becomes very important in the NDI business. And more we are having to speak to providers and telling them that sometimes growing too much is actually not good for you, because the additional cost you're going to pay, you might as well stay a small provider. So we'll just start with budgeting um, and pricing, please. So thank you for Mark for increasing the size. Okay, so first of all, why we're saying budgeting pricing, and this is an interesting one, because a lot of the small companies, a lot of the clients that we look after as well, we don't do an actual budget for the year, right? So we have an idea of what we're going to do, but we don't necessarily create a budget and then stick to it. This is one of the things that we learned while we work in the larger organizations. There was a very heavy focus on budgets, and some of you guys who might have worked for large organizations, I'm sure you'll agree with me. So there used to be a period of the year where the whole team or the whole company is doing budgets, and that used to be generally a very busy period. And generally for accountants, that's like you can say 70% of the role, which is budgeting. I don't see that a lot of that happening in smaller companies, but I think as soon as you've reached your $500,000 turnover, it's good to do a budget. Then you will know exactly what you're going to be making, and whether you're going to be making a profit, and whether you're going to be running a sustainable operation or not. And also another very big benefit of creating a budget is that then you can hold yourself accountable as well. For example, if you've budgeted that you're going to spend, say, 10 grand in fuel in a year based on your past performance, and then if this year you're spending 12 or 13 grand, then you'll basically hold yourself accountable and investigate as to why you're spending the extra amount of money. Whether it is additional kilometers, whether the fuel price has gone up, but at least there will be a point for you to sort of stop and ponder where the money is going to. Okay, so what we suggest that you work in your company, especially once you've been operating for more than 1 year, is have a look at your last year. Okay, what was your turnover? How much money did you spend in payroll, in admin, in rent, in electricity, in fuel, all of that? And if you're using a software like Xero, QuickBooks, or even Vertex 360 to essentially understand your revenue and your schedule support, you can bring all the information together, and then you can use the information to make a budget for the following year. So then you can simply say, okay, last year, and in Australia, we work on a financial year 30, which ends in 30 June. So this is a good time, actually, January to June. So this is a good time to sort of see, okay, say 30 June 25, where did we end? And now you have until 30 June 26, where do we forecast that we're going to end? And based on the information, you will make a budget for 30 June 2027. Okay, which will be basically implemented as of 1st of July 2026, so that you can track how your revenue is going. And then how you do the budget, obviously it's quite complicated. I mean, it's a complicated procedure, but essentially what you will do is you will have a look at your number of participants that you have, and then you look at how much funds, I guess, how much you invoiced in the last 12 months, and how much you invoiced them until December. So then you have almost 18 months of data, and then using that data, you can then stipulate what the next year will look like. Some of your things like rent, fuel, rent might be fixed, so you know exactly if you have an office that you're paying 30 grand, you're going to pay 30 grand, so you can put that. And you can you can make it as complicated as possible, or you can make it as simple as possible. So you could just do a spreadsheet, or you could do in QuickBooks and Xero as well. You could load up your budgets too, depending on your organization size. So once you've done that, put your revenue, put your cost, and then you see, okay, am I going to be sustainable next year based on the information that I have, and I hope so that you will be. And then after that, you lock that budget in, and then from July onwards, then you start basically delivering services, and obviously then you can start comparing your actual to your budget, and that will tell you whether your organization is going ahead or whether you're going to have any cash flow issues. And just like any problems, the quicker you know that you're going to have a problem or you're going to face a problem, the quicker you can find a resolution for it. It could be that you lost a big participant. Yeah, it could be anything. The participant went to another service, or there was a death in of a participant. Then you're going to have a massive drop in revenue. So, which means either we have to replace that revenue with another revenue, or we need to reduce some of our cost in order to remain sustainable. The whole game of the budget is to make sure that you know where you're heading. Okay, and then I'm sure you guys can talk to the guys at Vortex 360 as well as to how they can help you implement schedule of sports, which can estimate how much money you can bring in the following year. Okay, now do as I mentioned before, I would like this session, if possible, that if you guys have any question about budgets or if this is making sense to you, is to ask a question so we can discuss more. Otherwise, we can just move to the next topic. Should we move to the next topic? Everybody understands budgets? All right, let's just move on. Okay.
Getting some thumbs up.
That's good. All right, so look, so we move on to the next thing, which is that's another thing that we see a lot of. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure on the plan managers now in terms of making sure all the invoices are correct. I think a lot of you guys will sort of agree that the plan managers are becoming more pedantic about each line item, and whether some of them will even ask you for case notes, and whether you can fully substantiate your claim for the timesheet. And this is going to become more and more, I guess, regulated as well. Whereas even with NDIS, and even if you do go NDIA managed clients, um, I'm not sure if you had the pleasure of having an audit from an NDIA. So it is quite time consuming because essentially you have to provide each invoice, each case notes, and then you need to link the payments you made to your support worker with the case notes and with the invoice. So it's quite a tedious task to be having, and I hope it doesn't happen. But if it does, then you got to provide a lot of documentation, and this is where we are putting a lot of emphasis on our providers, our clients, to use systems to have good record keeping, because that good record keeping is what's going to make sure that you do get paid on time. Okay, so we'll start with the basics one. So one of the things that we see a lot is the clients will issue an invoice and they'll miss their provider number or the ABN number. Now, traditionally, back in the days, I think for the plan manager's perspective, as long as your name and logo was there, they would process the invoice. But we're saying that continuously they've been asking to put the ABN number, because from the ABN number, that's how the NDIS and the ATO tracks how much amount is going towards that particular company. Secondly is your participant details. So you got to make sure your full name of the participant is there, the NDIS number is there, and the address is there. Sometimes you can have some plan manager who will tell you not to put the address, which is fine. But generally speaking, these three things you must have on your invoice, so the plan manager knows of which participant this actual invoice is related to. The next field is for item number. So once again, you have to make sure that the service that you provided is the right line items from the guide. And this is a way, I guess, you can also take advantage from software like 360, because that will actually tell you of the service that you provided. It sort of suggests, this is the line item for it. And the biggest thing I think we should, or the most valuable thing is, the one that I advise most of my clients is to make a schedule of support, because that schedule of support will basically list down the items and list down the amount of hours and what days you're going to provide. And then when you're doing the invoicing, you can always refer back to your schedule of support to make sure that you are delivering those services, or if there's any variation to it, why the variation is there. And then you can ask your support worker or your care coordinator as to where the problem is there. Uh, Service dates are very, very important. A lot of the clients, as if they miss a service date, what I hear is that most plan managers will just not process the invoices anymore. So you gotta have the service date covered. And most of the services of the NDIS are GST free, and so that's, I guess it's not that hard. And then the total amount, you gotta have the total at right at the end. So once again, if you're using a software like Xero, QuickBooks, or MYOB, and then you have a software at the back like 360, which backs up with the case notes and the timesheets, then each invoice has got a timesheet and a case note. So if in future, if we ever get audited or if we ever get questions, we can simply look at the invoice, look at the timesheet and the case notes that backs it up. We will know who the support worker is. We will know what case note or what work was performed, and we can simply hand that over to whoever will ask for that evidence in order to make sure that we do get paid on time. And as I mentioned before, this is the really big one. I've had clients who are owed 200, 150 grand plus. So you get like it's like a double sword, because you still have to pay your support worker or your team. So not only you haven't received the money, but you also paid out the money. So you're getting a double whammy, as I say. So you don't get paid, and you paid out of your pocket. Okay, so if you don't get that amount paid, your company will be in serious cash flow issues. Okay, any questions on invoicing and I guess record keeping? Otherwise, we can move to the next.
I believe they're all good.
Thank you. All right, so payroll and rostering. Payroll and rostering, this is, I believe, is the most important item of any NDIS business. This is mainly due to the fact that almost 65 or 70% of your cost is in labor. This is labor cost. NDS is a business which is very heavily intensified by labor. So it is very important to make sure that your payroll and your rostering is correct. And a lot of times, a good roster will fix a lot of your payroll issues. So you have to make sure that when you're rostering, you are, I guess, you have to have like a checklist of making sure that you're covering your overtime. You're making sure that you don't have any double shifts. For example, one support worker finishing and then starting a shift after, and if they don't have a break in between, you have to give some allowances there. Especially from our experience, any support worker that's doing more than 76 hours a fortnight, if it's doing, for example, if they're doing 80 or 90, then pretty much from that shift, your profit is gone. Because by the time you pay the overtime, essentially your profit is no longer there. So it's become very, very crucial that when you have people working with you, that your roster is correct and you are making sure that you're not just giving everybody 76 hours. You're keeping some gap in there just in case somebody calls in sick or something. At least you can alternate the shifts so to remain within the 76 period, because overtime in this can be very, very expensive. And the one other thing is, and again, this is here where I guess you can use our friends from 360, because they got a full rostering module where you can roster and estimate the cost of what it will be and the hours of each support worker. And that way you will make sure that the support workers are logging in and logging out against that roster. And this will also help you understand where your costs are going. For example, if somebody hasn't done the shift as per the roster, and then somebody else has to do it, that explains your overtime as well. So it's all about making sure that when you, as a business owner or as an operations manager, you do understand where your money is going and where your funds are being deployed, to make sure that you are continuously a sustainable business. One of the biggest thing that is coming is in superannuation. So that will start from July. So the law has already been passed. So now every payday you have to pay super. One thing that I get a lot is, oh, my workers are on an ABN, so hence I don't need to pay super, which is not true at all. All your ABN workers, uh, because majority of their, I guess, the cost that they're charging you is for labor, you have to pay super for them as well. We've had clients who've come to us from different accounting services who have had this audit and they've been heavily penalized, because they just did not pay the superannuation, and they're just being paying and a high hourly rate. So one argument I see from some providers is that, yes, but I am paying the rate including super. So I'm paying, for example, $45 or $50 an hour, whereas the employee is getting $40 an hour. Unfortunately, the way ATO interprets that, even if you have a contract in place, ATO will say, well, now it's your responsibility as an employer to be paying the super. So regardless either you pay $50 or $55 an hour, unfortunately, you have to now pay 12% of that as super as well. So this is where also, as I mentioned to you, when you're doing budgeting, you have to look at, just to secure, for example, some support worker. If you promise them $50 or $55 an hour, just make sure that you understand that that's just not the cost, $50 an hour. There is another 12% of super, and then there is another 5%, oh, sorry, 3.85% workers' comp, and depending on your size, another 5% of payroll tax as well. Okay. Thank you. Now, the second thing was, and then the second thing is in the payroll also, where we see heavily is that a lot of people, when they're running on pay, they're paying the staff on TFN, because they're doing PAYG, they withhold that money from the staff, but they don't put that into a separate bank account. And during the 3 months, that money gets used. And when 3 months later, when your accountant comes to you and says, hey, this is your BAS and this is a PAYG you withheld, which is now like 15, 20 grand, and you have to pay it. And unfortunately, you've spent all that money. And this becomes a massive issue and can create a lot of troubles for you, even including insolvency. And as most of you guys would know, that as a director, trading insolvency is illegal and gets heavily penalized. So you have to make sure that you're always trading solvent and you always have money to pay your obligations. Okay, this is, you can say, is one of the biggest issues we see is a PAYG. What I suggest to some clients, especially, is that if they don't have, I guess, the discipline to um, keep the money on the side. Um, for example, you might be putting money on the side, but business happens, things happen, and then all of a sudden you need money. So you touch the piggy bank and then you pay it back and you pay your bills, and then you forgot to, I guess, return the money in your piggy bank. One thing I guess you can do is you can always go on to monthly cycles with the ATO, so that you are paying the PAYG and your super each month. Hence, it's not there for you to access. The second thing you can do is also you can get your BPA details of your account with ATO. So it kind of works like a bank, where you can just keep sending money every month or every fortnight, so that when your BAS comes every 3 months, you're already in credit and your amount is already paid. Of course, you lose the benefit of having the money with you to help with your working capital. But this is where I'm saying that either you have the discipline of managing the cash flow, but if you believe that you don't have that discipline, or or you're unable to cope with the pressure of handling money like that, then I suggest you pay that amount to the ATO on your pay cycle. So if you're fortnightly, transfer the money fortnightly, or if you're monthly, do it monthly. From July onwards, we're going to no longer have the superannuation issue because the superannuation will need to be paid each pay run. So just make sure, please, that you're ready for that. Your system, accounting systems, they will get updated. So just essentially, from I guess from mentally and now from cash flow perspective, make sure you're ready. And if you need any help with that, you've got my contact details. Please feel free to reach out, and we can help you with that. Just one second. What about labor hire agreements? Um, so labor hire agreement, if you are dealing with another company, another PTY limited company, then you don't have to pay the superannuation because then it's their responsibility. So you should, but if they are a sole trader, then even if you have a labor hire agreement, which says the super is part of it, unfortunately, the ATO says it is the employer's responsibility to pay the super. We have been, with some of our clients, we have been successful in telling the support worker that, hey, we used to pay you $50 an hour, but we just realized that we have to pay superannuation. So we're now going to be still giving you $50 an hour. But what we're going to do is we're going to deduct the super and transfer that to your superannuation and give whatever amount balance is to yourself. Obviously, it's a very, I guess, a difficult discussion because now your support worker, instead of getting, I guess, 45 or $50 an hour, is getting 12% less. But that's just a difficult discussion that I think as a business owner you need to have. Otherwise, you're going to be having a lot of cash flow issues, and sustainability issues will also be there. All right. So once again, this is a system. I know I keep repeating, but I believe if you have a 360 software there, it can help you integrate your timesheets, making sure all the hours are correct, and the systems are talking to your payroll software systems, and you can always check between what's happening in your SaaS, which is your, I guess, your time logging software, and your actual payroll to make sure your hours are correct and that you are paying the correct hours. Again, like I said, payroll, so we're just giving you guys introductions. Please feel free to reach out if there's more information that you need in terms of the payroll. So we process payroll for almost 100 NDIS providers. So we got quite a bit of knowledge on the I guess the technicalities of it. So if there's anything you'd like to know, please feel free to reach out. All right, can we please move on to the next topic? Thank you. Okay, so at the end of the day, I guess what we're really trying to focus on, I think there was I just shared the news with some of my team members this morning. There was a big provider in New South Wales called Momentum Collective, who are also shutting down in their NDIS services, NDS offerings, and they are also citing mainly the cash flow issues and mainly the cost. Because as I mentioned to you, if you think about it, that if you are an organization that has a payroll of $1 million and up, you got this additional tax of payroll tax. So what it means is that somebody that you're paying $40, you have the 12% super, 5% payroll tax, and then another 4% of workers' compensation. So this is called the on cost. So your on cost now is almost about 18%. So that means if your labor cost was, say, 65%, now you add 18% on it. So that's almost 78, almost actually 80% something. Okay, so they take a big chunk of it. So that's why even for us and our clients, we're going to be focusing a lot on doing a budget for the following year so that we know exactly what cost we're paying and what we have to pay. And I think one of the costs that I forgot to mention is a portable long service leave. So that's another 1.2%. So hence, as you can see, is almost the on cost almost becomes 20%. So you're now, if your labor cost is 65, is gone up to 85%. with all the on cost. Okay, so again, please make sure you have a system where you're tracking over the invoices, and you're making sure that your over the invoices past, I guess, 7 days or 8 days, you have a system or in place that if your invoice is more than 2 weeks late, then you're doing active collection for it, actively finding out what's going on, why we're not getting paid. And there are systems already there, and they don't cost a lot of money. For example, like Xero, QuickBooks, all of that, you can manage it. But you just got to make sure that you are doing the invoicing in that system as well, in order for you to check it. Make sure you have a good bookkeeping in order, especially if you are a business that has crossed that, I guess, $500,000 turnover threshold. Then my suggestion will be to do a monthly bookkeeping, and then if you cross $1 million, then fortnightly bookkeeping to make sure that all the money that was meant to come in is coming in, all the money that you're spending, you know where you're spending, and you're making sure that you have leftover money for any rainy days as well as to cover any additional bills. The compliance is becoming, I wouldn't say it's becoming a nightmare. The compliance was always a requirement, but I think ATO has finally started putting a target on the NDIS providers, because as you can understand, it has become a massive industry, a $40 billion plus industry. And what the ATO thinks is that they're not getting back what they think they should be getting back. So just remember, always, whenever you have government schemes like these, they also budget benefits and the taxes that should result from that. So there, from ATO's perspective, there is a gap there. So for example, they were expecting, say, $10 billion back in taxes and all that, but they're only receiving 8 billion. So they're looking for the extra 2 billion. That's why some of you guys will know that the ATO communication has become a bit aggressive. They've become less lenient. If you're late on your BAS, you do get penalized, and they're not willing to waive that penalty straight away. You have to come up with a lot of reasons and excuses of why you were late. And also on top of that, you have to promise that in future you will make sure the compliance is done. And if they have given you a waiver in the last 12 months, then generally speaking, you will not get another waiver for the next 12 months. Okay, so this is a big one. I know that in April you got the FBT coming. So all the people that have bought cars under the business, make sure you do your FBT returns and your logbooks, because any personal usage of the car will be taxed at the FBT rates, which I believe is about 45%. So you need to make sure that your FBT returns are being done as well. And then lastly, I guess the biggest thing, as I mentioned before, is the compliance on the ABN. And I think the biggest change we're seeing now is that there is called TPR report, which is when you pay your subcontractors, you have to report that to the ATO. So for example, you've paid 10 subcontractors. So at the end of the year, you go in and you say, these were my 10 subcontractors, sole traders. I've paid them 20 grand, 30 grand, or 70 grand, and this is the amount of GST I've paid them, and that summary goes in so that ATO can do data matching. I think a lot of you guys would agree that you're here that, a lot of sport workers, they don't do the tax returns, and that's why they prefer to work on the ABN. ATO is putting a stop to that, so which is pretty good, and which is positive. So a lot of your sport workers' income will now be reported by the employer, so they will no longer be able to, I guess, not do their taxes. Okay, and lastly is you, depending on your organization size, and so regardless of whether you're small or big, when you're running a business, you have to have a strategic review, whether it is every 6 months or whether it's once a year or whether it's every month. That depends on the size of the business, but there has to be a strategic review. You have to sort of understand, when you're running a business, how are you performing each year and year? And naturally, we should be aiming for growth year and year, or a reduction in the cost, and just to make sure that we are sustainable. and your budgets are one of the biggest tool that you can help you understand where your costs are going and making sure that you stay on your target. Okay, so these are the four elements that should help you run a financially stable business. We wish everybody the best. We do understand and appreciate it is very challenging times for most NDS providers. Hence, making sure that your foundations are strong. It's very, very important for the future. Okay. Any questions from everybody?
We do have one, Hamad,
Sure.
in the
Yeah.
chat.
Yeah. Was it regarding
This,
the labor hire?
yep.
Yeah, so thanks for the questions. So yes, as I mentioned to you before, so if your labor hire agreement is with another company, another PTO limited, or another, I guess, a trust as well, then you do not need to pay the super. It is their responsibility to pay the super. But if your agreement is with another sole trader, ABN, then unfortunately you're still liable to pay the super. Okay. Any other questions? No problems. So look, please do provide your feedback as to if there's any other topics that you guys would like us to cover in future, or if you want more details in the presentations so that we can take, because this is something new that we're starting at Vertex Partners as well. So we're sort of learning too. So please do give us a feedback of what you liked and what you, I guess, didn't find as useful so that we can keep improving and make sure that we all are above the water and that we all run a good successful business. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hamad. So,
Thank you.
for those who are new to us, a quick introduction. Vertex 360 is an all-in-one NDIS management platform designed to help providers stay compliant, organized, and in control. From participant onboarding to payroll, invoicing, documentation, and reporting. So we work closely with providers across Australia to reduce admin overload and then also improve audit readiness and give leadership to your care coordinators, teams, real visibility over their operations. So today's webinar is part of our ongoing commitment to educating and supporting the NDIS community. Also, Vertex 360 will be undergoing a rebrand in the coming weeks. Same platform, same features, same team, just a clearer, much improved experience for our clients. We'll share more details very soon, but rest assured, nothing changes operationally for our users. Again, thank you so much, Hamad. That was
Thank you
very
for having us.
insightful. I'm sure a lot of the attendees today was, resonated with what you've shared. But before we wrap up, we'll take a few questions from the chat if there's any. You can also click the raise hand button if you like.
Yeah.
Then kindly wait to be acknowledged. Thank you. Any other questions from you guys?
I'll just
Any
remember
questions?
my sure.
Nope, no questions at all. Okay,
Okay. Look,
go
you
ahead.
guys have got my contact details. Feel free to send us an email if there's anything you'd like to know. We can help you there as well.
All
All
right.
right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
Yes.
for joining the webinar today. Again, you will be receiving a copy of the webinar after the day today because we'll be sending you the copy tomorrow. And should you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Mark, or Hamad, or you can also email info@vertex360.io. All right.
And
Have a yeah.
thank you,
Go
Chess.
ahead,
But
Mark.
before you all go, we'd love to invite you to our next still free webinar that will be Information Management System for NDIS Provider. The host will be the same, Mr. Hamad Rana. And on that will be on the 5th of February, same time, 3 p.m. So this session will be focused on something just as critical as finances. So that will be information management system on our next webinar. So do keep we will keep you updated. We'll send you email of the registration for the next webinar. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Sure, bye.